Mr. Chairman.
I call Otto Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to go over some history and some old ground to just remind the Minister that yes, we are transitioning from one accounting, one reporting model to another model. So Clause 4 really talks about moving to the new fully funded operations. And I also want to remind the Minister that that we are talking about a system that has been more than fully funded. It is that we are really well aware that many of the ACC accounts have been oversubscribed, and we too are looking for ensuring that the bill does live up to its transparency title and will provide some assurance and some confidence to the public of New Zealand that they will be, in fact, providing what they need to, plus with some buffer into the ACC accounts, and won't be actually supporting what is clearly not a transparent action, in that supporting this government to get into surplus. Mr. Chairman, I want to turn to, I guess, three important parts in Part 1, the principles of financial responsibility, the funding policy statement, and the consultation process and any amendments to the funding policy statement. Mr. Chairman, the principles, of course, the cost of all claims under the levied accounts are to be fully funded by meeting the outstanding claims liability in respect of the claims by offsetting an adequate level of assets to fund the cost of these claims. Very sensible, so ensuring that there is sufficient funds to pay for ACC costs as they occur to those people who may in fact have accidents and need to have their medical and ongoing costs covered. It does cause members, some particularly electorate members who have members of their constituents who come and see them on a regular basis to talk about ACC claims and the like, sir. And often I wonder whether sometimes we perhaps don't take full cognizance of future ACC liability, and that our populations do get older, and sometimes their ACC and their health concerns and their accident concerns actually end up costing more than we have potentially set aside. So the second part of that clause 166A, when making recommendations in respect of regulations made under section 329, setting levies, the Minister must have regard to the following principles. That phrase, must have regard, of course, is an important one, because originally I understand the bill said must be set in accordance with the following principles. We are talking about two different levels of requirement, and we're concerned about the watering down of this particular part of the bill. Must have regard, of course, does take those things into account, but they do not have the same level of weight as must be set in accordance with the following principles. So we are concerned about that, Mr. Chairman. The next part of the 166B, which talks about the funding policy statement. It is clear that the policy statement must be set based on the principles of financial responsibility. But the policy statement must also specify a target level or band for funding of each account. Now, in that process, Mr. Chairman, we are looking at the consultation process that the Minister must undergo to ensure that the Minister has sufficient information to be able to be comfortable with the target level, the band for each funding account. And as such, the Minister is able to consult persons and organisations, but the Minister must also have the ability to determine the amount within the bands for each funding account in terms of ensuring that there are no huge changes in levies that could be set. One of the issues that many businesses have talked to us about is that there is a potential for levies to vary hugely over time, and it makes it very difficult for businesses to, Mr. Chairman.
Portal Williams.
Thank you. It makes it very difficult for businesses to actually set their budgets and be able to determine their costs, particularly their costs of employment, out for any significant period of time. So we would want to support ensuring that there are very limited variances in those levies, and the ability to do that would mean that the Minister may take advice from ACC, but may need to take regard of those ongoing concerns. Also within the funding policy statement, we're very cognizant of the fact that we would not want for there to be oversubscription to those particular accounts. And my colleague Ian-Lise Galloway did talk about potentially some accounts being oversubscribed to about 140%, which clearly demonstrates that those basic principles of financial responsibility haven't necessarily been applied. And the consultation process hasn't been applied adequately. So we're really confident that used correctly, the principles in consultation, the funding policy will actually take care of ensuring that we don't oversubscribe by more than 120%. And I do just finally in this contribution want to talk about the what is a really important aspect to this, that is determining what is public good and public interest. With public interest, the SOP has been put up by Ms Moroney, we want to ensure that public interest takes into full regard the purpose of reducing accidents and injuries, and in particular having regards to the interest of taxpayers, levy payers, claimants and potential claimants. It seems inordinately sensible to have that feature as part of this bill, and I'm hopeful that we can get some support for this supplementary order paper to ensure that that happens. Public good, Mr Chairman, means that the public interest with regard to reducing injury and accidents, and at the end of the day that's what accident compensation should be about. It should be about the prevention of accidents. It should not be about us wanting to build up funds it is more about prevention. It should be about prevention rather than about setting aside money for accidents when really it's far better in the country's, absolutely, far better in the country's interest to reduce that cost to us. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
I call Clayton Mitchell.